for some more insight into this, our very good friend, Stephen Yates. It's his first appearance with us here this new year. Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Hey, Happy New Year.
You can find him at Yates. I gotta give him all the particulars. You can find him at Yatescoms on X, not Twitter. Senior fellow at America First Policy Institute and chair of the China Policy Initiative. Okay, why is this, Stephen? Why is it like pulling teeth when we talk about because Taiwan would love to spend some nice cash money on some good U.S. arms. I'm a capitalist. I'm all for selling them that. But then we have, it's a big ordeal to even get approval or even bring it up in national discourse. But yet, Biden administration can sidestep Congress on a number of issues for anybody else.
Yeah, this is one of those things that made me old and bald faster than I should have been because it really doesn't make good sense, not just from a common sense point of view. I think it's bad for American national interests. Number one, here is a partner and an ally in many ways, willing to pay cash money, which, by the way, we have an unfavorable trade balance with Taiwan. They're friends, but they still get a good deal in our economic relationship. This gets some of those greenbacks back to America, which would be a good thing. Keeps jobs flowing in America, and it helps them be more able to defend themselves. And shouldn't we want them able to defend themselves so they're not relying on dialing up 911 and for Uncle Sam to come in? So it really doesn't make good sense. And then also from a bureaucratic point of view, I mean, this has just been so remarkably stupid for so long. And a lot of this, I think the Biden administration has made worse. But frankly, a lot of the predecessors were not good either. We only sell the sort of used systems, the lower rate systems. And we sort of mess ourselves for a long time to be able to even provide that. Meanwhile, China faces no speed bumps in stealing American technology or buying Russian technology and kind of ramping up the pressure work. So it's just bad brain work and it's super bad policy work. And oh, by the way, the Secretary of Defense is supposed to sign off on this stuff, and he's not around.
Yeah, which is his position actually all that important if he's not there and nobody notices?
Well, that should be a really good rule of thumb for, say, a new administration that wants to set a benchmark. Anyone who considers themselves to be non-essential so that they can take the day off or they can remote work for an extended period of time, consider that move permanent.
There you go. Talking with our good friend Stephen Yates. To this point, AP headline: China sanctioning 5 U.S. defense companies in response to sanctions and arms sales to Taiwan. The bare minimum that we do. China they're very offended. They've announced big sanctions Sunday on 5 American defense-related companies. Yet, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I also saw over the weekend that North Korea fired all these artillery rounds at South Korea border island. I mean, isn't pretty much everything that North Korea fires from China anyway? So what is China complaining about?
Yeah, well, China has gotten very, very used to being able to be a hypocrite and play both sides of the fence, and they've gotten away with it. So if you've been able to act with impunity, why would you stop? So it's just really, really easy to kind of tell what's going on here. Some of this is political theater and bluster. I think we have to take what China is doing and saying seriously enough that we have to be prepared in case they would do something dangerous and irresponsible. But of course, they're just crying wolf about this. Basically, I think that we should find in every agency of government and every branch of government some way to offend the sensitive feelings of the Chinese leadership every day, at least once.
Like this.
And you get more marks if you do it 3 or 4 times.
I do like this. We should probably, if we sell more stuff to Taiwan, we should have Winnie the Pooh on it or something to that effect. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm all for that.
Name and shame, but emphasis the shame.
I wanted to kind of, because I have a million things to talk to you about. It's been a while since we spoke. First show back that we have you for New Year, but I guess it was like it's kind of an older soundbite, but I keep hearing it over and over again, especially amongst some Republicans that say, "Oh my gosh, a win for Russia and Ukraine is a win for China." Can you explain to me because we can't figure that out. We can't figure that one out. How?
Well, there are people that I consider to be intelligent and my friends. I have to unfortunately say that makes me throw up a little in my mouth every time I hear it because it just does not work. So what happens in Ukraine is not going to change what is happening in East Asia. When you have Basically, you have a land invasion by a country that I think our august vice president said is a big country that went into another country. When it comes to China and Taiwan, there's 100 miles of water, and it's choppy water, and this would be a much, much different situation. But it might kind of make China more willing to do something against Taiwan if it believed the U.S. was tied down in Ukraine
That's a big gamble.
intractably. But the bottom line is no one, after billions and billions of dollars have been spent on the intelligence community, lots of money spent and paper wasted on our diplomats trying to get at knowledge inside China. None of them have an accurate read on what decisions Xi Jinping is going to make. And if they had the perfect memo, are they going to hold him to it? So all of this is a wasted breath. We should deal with the Ukraine situation based on what our national interests are there. We have a problem in the Middle East. And basically what we have is, I think, two bigger challenges of malign influences: the malign influences of the mullahs in Iran and the malign influence of the CCP. I think the CCP is the bigger problem civilizationally, but the mullahs in Iran are no small problem right now. We need to be minimizing our overstretch and maximizing the ability of allies. And basically what's happening in Ukraine is not a happy narrative from my point of view.
Yeah, I agree with you. Talking with our friend Stephen Yates. You can find him on X at YatesComms. This headline from CNN: China feels that the country isn't patriotic enough, so they're introducing a new law to change this. This is wild. I don't know, are you even free to be quote unquote patriotic in a communist country? I mean, I just feel like if they're forcing you to do it, then it's not patriotism. Isn't that patriotism is like voluntary?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like stand-up comics where you have to laugh, otherwise you get electrocuted in your seat. And so basically this is forced love of country. And of course, what they really mean is you have to love your leaders. I mean, this country is just my toy, but you really better love my leadership and don't question it right now. And so yeah, it's absolutely absurd. It's one of the reasons why we shouldn't assume China is 10 feet tall or will be successful forever. But it's because of these problems that they're dangerous, in my view. So yeah, this compulsory patriotism is lunatic. It's like a dating service that forces you to think the other person is beautiful, even though they're a dog-faced pony soldier, as our president would say.
I like that. Yeah, the patriotic education law, enhancing national unity, or else. Boy, that's
Yeah.
I'm glad we don't have anything like that here. I want to go back really quickly to the Lloyd Austin thing, because this to me is such a crazy story. We mentioned it briefly, and I wanted to circle back to it because one of the things that stuck out to me is the deputy Secretary of Defense was, I guess, vacationing in Puerto Rico when she was told that she was going to need to fill in for Lloyd Austin because she was kind of kept in the dark as to why. Is that unusual?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't like to name drop, and I don't like other people who do, for the most part, and I don't really like to overblow where I've been or what I've done.
Yates, if you're unfamiliar,
But
Yates has been in every administration.
I spent 5 years in a White House, and I don't think every decision was right, whatever, bygones. But I didn't spend a day in the White House where I didn't actually know for a fact that the vice president and the president had spoken, the president and the national security advisor had spoken, that their deputies were in meetings together, their deputies knew where their principal was. There was decisions that had to be made where you had to get clearance and you were talking through these things. There wasn't a single, and that was before 9/11. After 9/11, it was like that in spades because you focused on continuity of government. But the Constitution gives very specific enumerated responsibilities in the chain of command from the commander in chief to the secretary of Defense. And that's incredibly important. It is beyond my imagination that anything like this could ever have happened. I mean, I like sarcasm and humor, and I'd like to find a joke in this. This terrifies me This is complete dereliction of duty. I mean, the North Koreans could have popped something off terrible. The Chinese could have gone on Taiwan. The Iranians could have done more to back their proxies, hitting Israel and others. And who knows what's coming over our border. And we've got a Secretary of Defense who can just disappear for the better part of a week. And it's not like it's kept from the media. Shame on them for not even noticing or asking. But my goodness, within the White House and the national security structure, it's beyond conceivable to me. It's terrifying.
Yeah, and with everything that's been happening, we've had attacks on U.S. soldiers. We struck one of the big bad Houthi guys in Baghdad. Speaking of Houthi, my gosh, the attacks on merchant ships and the United States having to respond to that. The Houthis that are right there in Yemen. Which then brings me to the whole point of shipping. We've talked a little bit about this last time you were with us, Suez Canal, et cetera, et cetera. Where are the other Arab nations that are stepping up and saying these are literally these are our waters? We could probably do a heck of a lot more to police this and not just have the United States take the lead on it. Where are they?
Well, number one, they might be deterred from speaking up because the Biden administration has basically scared people into, if they take their own initiative, that they'll face criticisms and sanctions of their own. One of the most unusual experiences of my public policy life was on basically the very beginning of the Biden administration. The president went to the State Department, and of all the places he might have mentioned in the entire world, he talked about the Houthis and that civil war. And I thought, where in this election campaign was this word ever even mentioned? But oddly enough, this was a priority for the Biden administration. And why would that be? A surrogate of Iran getting off of some kind of a watch list and getting more room to breathe in a civil war and brushing back our Arab allies for their intervention to try to stop the Iranians and the terrorists. Well, as we know, it's because they have leaned in favor of appeasing Tehran as their version of a path to stability in the Middle East. I think it's a fool's errand, it's a lie, it's dangerous. But oddly enough, the Houthis have been at the beginning of this strategy by the administration from the very beginning of the administration. Don't take my word for it. Take Jumpin' Joe's word for it from his first speech to the State Department.
2024, November can't come soon enough. But then at the same time, can it though? Because I just get nervous all around. Stephen Yates at YatesComs on X. So good to see you. Happy New Year to you, my friend. Look forward to everything this year. God bless.
Thank you so much, Dana. Take care.
You too.